damn movie either.
She went on to declare, quote, "May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace." And according to a report, Disney hired a social media expert to work with Rachel Zegler after she spent all that time on social media torturing Trump supporters. I mean, she also has, the sort of complex, boy.
And I can only hope that despite my flaws and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
She would compare herself. Snow White for starters. She compared herself to the famous statue Winged Victory at the Louvre. Well, this is interesting because Snow White is not meeting expectations, which was about $250 million to put together, not meeting box office expectations. And the son of the producer of Snow White, a guy named Jonah Platt, she posted, your dad flew to New York City to reprimand a young actress. Any words on this? Because that's creepy as hell and uncalled for. People have the right of free speech. No? Shame on your father. He responded, "You really want to do this? Yeah, my dad, the producer of an enormous piece of Disney IP with hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, had to leave his family to fly across the country to reprimand his 20-year-old employee for dragging her personal politics into the middle of promoting the movie for which she signed a multi-million-dollar contract to get paid and do publicity for this. This is called adult responsibility and accountability, and her actions clearly hurt the film's box office. Free speech does not mean you're allowed to say whatever you want in your private employment without repercussions." He goes on to say something that was actually a really good point. Tens of thousands of people worked on that film, and she hijacked the conversation for her own immature desires at the risk of all the colleagues and crew and blue-collar workers who depend on that movie to be successful. Narcissism is not something to be coddled or encouraged.
But they've been encouraging it for years.
Well,
this is
I suppose they chose Rachel Zegler, having to have some insight into who she is and how she might behave. Anyway, Christian Toto joins us now. He's the host of the Hollywood in Toto podcast, Hollywood in Toto, TOTO.com. Christian, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. John just nailed it. I don't even think you guys need me because the media and the culture in Hollywood, they've been encouraging this kind of activism for years, this kind of selfish, politically charged banter. They want it, they thrive on it, they reproduce it, and they ask all the stars every time they're on the red carpet politically charged questions, hoping they'll get a Zegler-esque question. But this one just happened to blow up on their faces in spectacular fashion. And I think this may be a watershed moment where actors maybe sort of kind of finally realize that they could tank their own projects with what they say. Listen, when you go on the red carpet, you're there to promote your movie. That's all you're there for. That's all the job entails. And they can't do it.
Republicans buy shoes too. Didn't Michael Jordan say that?
He did.
Yeah, I mean, that's and listen, Johnny Carson knew that as well.
Right.
I just don't understand. You know, when an actor goes on the red carpet or appears on Colbert or does any of that stuff, they're not there because they want to be there. They're there because they're contractually obligated to promote their product, their movie, their TV show, their book, whatever. And yet they keep doing this. This is just the most egregious example. And you know, listen, she's only 23. She's a young woman. She's deluded, clearly. But she has talent. She has a bright future on paper in front of her. I would love for her to give an interview where she said, gosh, I screwed up. I made it all about me. I've learned a lot from this. I feel dumb. You know, I'd let my colleagues down. Wouldn't that be refreshing? But I don't know if she's got that in her.
Yeah, I mean, she could have had that moment when she was saying, "I've got a lot of cracks and this and that," but then to compare herself to Winged Victory and people, I mean, it's just like she couldn't hold it together.
Well, no, that she gave a very recent interview, and she was talking about how, listen, she was discovered on West Side Story. That was the Spielberg remake. And now more recently, one of her interviews said, yeah, when I was on the set, the white producers were trying to say, are you really Latina? Are you this? And she's like, do I have to bring out my abuelita? I mean, she can't stop playing the victim.
Yeah. Well, she was trained.
One in a million story.
The culture has trained her. She's a product of the culture. The culture has trained her to. Now, how badly is it doing in the box office? How bad?
Well, the first weekend was rather poor. I think about 42 million. And, for most movies, that's a good number. But when you have a movie with this kind of budget and these kind of expectations, that's terrible. And I think it's officially the worst live-action adaptation numbers for Disney. Listen, it's got the field mostly to itself for the next few weeks as far as new kid films. And Minecraft movie's coming out soon, so that'll dip into it as well. But, I don't think there's good word of mouth. I think the cinema score was modest at best. The reviews were terrible. So I just don't think it has the legs. It'll kind of eke out an existence and make some cash. But because the budget was so big, it just won't make up for it. It's going to be a loss.
Well, the other thing, too, with respect to that producer's kid, the other thing they have to take ownership of, and I haven't seen it, but I've read reviews of it that characterize it as, turning the Snow White story into the, woke Snow White story. And Rachel Zegler, when she was out, quote unquote, promoting the film, was talking about that. The original, of course, was so 1937, and we're not going to be the Snow White's not going to be saved by a handsome prince. It's going to be she's coming into her own as a leader in the modern world, whatever sort of neo-feminist nonsense. So they made some creative choices, too, that probably aren't helping.
Is it Prince a rapist in this one?
No. But you're absolutely right. Listen, this is a different story. I think the first two-thirds of the story is similar, and the third act really goes on its own direction. There's two quick things about that. One is, listen, they have that right. And I didn't listen, I found it woke as heck. Absolutely. That's kind of what I do. But I have to admit, I found it somewhat entertaining. I think that Rachel Zegler is good on screen with a lovely voice. So if you are willing to ride with that and go with the changes, I think it's an acceptable film. But, I think what's interesting about woke is it's trying to fix things that were broken. But was Snow White broken? It's an iconic film that people love. So I think there's a big misconception there. But, yeah, it isn't just her. But, she's becoming a wonderful scapegoat. She's partially to blame. But, Rachel Zegler didn't say that little people in the film would be problematic and then, insert them via CGI. That's not on her. That's on Disney. So they made some missteps along the way, too.
By the way, how much did Peter Dinklage make playing a dwarf? And then he's denying all the other dwarfs a chance to make real money.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Listen, he's a great actor. He works constantly.
Actor. Right.
And him sort of pulling up the ladder, not letting other little people get some gigs. Listen, discrimination against little people in Hollywood. I mean, how many times do you see little people in traditional basic roles? This doesn't happen in Hollywood, and that's Hollywood's fault. But this was a moment where some little people actors could get significant screen time to show what they can do, and they didn't get it.
A few bucks.
I saw that. Apparently that the message that the ecosystem sent to Rachel Zegler did not make its way to Tim Roth, who I do like as an actor, but he's pulling the Nazi card on Trump.
It's so exhausting. I mean, it's almost like they're reading from a script, a playbook. And I mentioned this a couple of minutes ago, is that the reason why they're shooting these answers off is because the people, the reporters, the journalists want these answers, and they promote these answers, and they provoke those answers. So if you got a Tim Roth on the red carpet or an interview, say, hey, by the way, you've done some project that overlaps, barely with politics 10 years ago. What do you think about Trump? I mean, that's what you get that. But listen, these are people who live in a bubble. They just don't get it. They don't understand. They probably think that Kamala Harris was articulate, bright, and just the greatest candidate in the history of mankind. So, of course, you get these answers. But you know what?
She was misunderstood.
Shame on Shame on Hollywood for being absolutely stone cold silent on censorship over the last 10 years. They've done nothing. They've said nothing, with very few exceptions, like Rob Schneider and John Cleese. They just sit there, and the Twitter files come and go, and the Biden censorship of the big tech platforms and kicking off presidents off social media. They either cheered or said nothing. So shame on them, because that's the one issue they should be talking about.
But isn't that a great story? I mean, it would be a great dramatic story, would it not? Get some great actors to play the roles.
Well, they don't want to do that. They don't want to tell the truth. That's not what they're in this for. I mean, they've got their own little story they want to tell. You know, when the Sarah Jessica Parkers and LeVar Burtons come out about book bans. Well, how about sensitivity readers basically slicing and dicing through history? You know, books by Roald Dahl and Ian Fleming and Agatha Christie, they got censored. I didn't hear a peep out of Sarah Jessica Parker, LeVar Burton. Shame on them too.
Yeah, right. And I mean, the word you use is perfect, exhausting. We before you joined us, we're talking about a series that we're watching now. John has just got the whole Taylor Sheridan oeuvre in a continuous loop. But I picked up Dope Thief, Ridley Scott's new offering. It's just only a few episodes in, but that's pretty good. I don't know if you've watched that yet or what you're watching now, but always interested.
You know, I caught up. I ran through Landman, which is the Taylor Sheridan, one of the newer stories, and I absolutely adored it. I mean, my gosh, Billy Bob Thornton is just a genius, and the writing in the show is so good. So I'm with you on the Sheridan. I do watch more movies than TV, and just kind of what I do. But I have been watching White Lotus, which is getting a lot of attention. And I have to say, it's not as good as the first two seasons, which I thought were terrific. But this one's more shock-based, with there's an incest storyline and this and that. So it's finally getting a little bit better. Things are finally starting to happen. But it's a great cast. It's beautifully shot. The music is compelling, but it just is a shadow of its old self.
I know people ask you about their favorites, and I have to ask you about mine. Years ago, I watched John Savage play a CIA analyst in The Amateur, and I loved it. It was a TV movie or something back in the 80s or 70s. And now I see The Amateur coming back out in another iteration.
Yeah, I think that's Rami Malek is coming soon. I don't know too much about that. By the way, I love John Savage. I grew up watching him, and one of my favorite movies as a child, and I'm no musical fan, was Hair, and he was so good in that, along with the great Treat Williams. But yeah, John Savage has a special place in my heart. One of my late dad's favorite actors, too.
So, film recommendations.
Oh, gosh. Where do
where
I mean, I honestly, I'm trying to think of something I've seen recently that I thought was really good, because I watch a lot of movies, too.
Go ahead.
No, that's why I'm asking for film recommendations.
Yeah. You know, I enjoyed A Working Man. It comes out this weekend. It's the new Jason Statham movie. You know, it's pure Jason Statham. I think he does the same thing every time, but I think he's very enjoyable to watch on screen. One film I want to give you a heads up on. It's coming out next weekend. I don't know how wide, but I think semi-wide. It's called The Friend. It's about a woman who has to adopt a Great Dane because her old good friend, played by Bill Murray, dies and leaves her the dog. This is Naomi Watts. She's a great actress. And let me tell you, it's a must-love dogs movie, because if you don't love dogs, you won't get it. But it is really sweet, and I've never seen a dog act with the job that this Great Dane does. It's a really powerful story.
There's a website called Does the Dog Die? Or at least there used to be a website.
Oh, gosh.
I cannot watch a movie if the dog dies.
I completely get that. I can't spoil it, but I just say, if you're a dog lover, you should definitely watch this movie. I will say that's I can't say anything more than that.
I'll have to find you then.
Well, first of all, on Jason Statham, I agree with you on Statham. You know who else I really like too? He's sort of a poor man's Jason Statham. He doesn't have the same notoriety, but he's almost as prolific, probably more prolific actually, is Scott Adkins. What do you think of Scott Adkins? You ever watch his action films?
Australian?
He's British, I think.
Yeah, he is interesting as well. Certainly a much lower profile.
Yeah.
You know, I think what these guys do is they have a real brand and they lean into it. You know, I think that actors today like to expand and grow, and I totally respect that. It's perfectly fine. I understand you want to kind of test your limits, but I have to say, I almost wish that a Statham would stretch more and would dig in more. And even his new movie, which is very good, I feel like there's ways you could see it kind of getting a little bit more interesting, a little bit more textured, but that's not what he does. By the way, he's 57. He moves like a 30-year-old. I don't know what's going on with his biology, but God bless him. Oh, also, just a quick warning, The Alto Nights is out in theaters. It's Robert De Niro playing two roles. You know, you're going to want to see it because it's De Niro, because it's a mob movie, because, memories. It's awful, avoided at all costs.
It's awful, avoided at all costs.
I love hearing that.
Okay, that's good.
Great actor, boy,
you know, but I did want to mention, actually, I per your recommendation, I mean, I was a nominee for Best Picture, and I was going to see it anyway, but I did see The Brutalist, and I got maybe you were too effusive about it, I don't know, but I didn't find it to be the sweeping epic that you described. Not to mention, I mean, that the one scene with Guy Pearce taking advantage of him, that was. I thought that was like over the top gratuitous. I understand what was being conveyed there, but I thought it was a little bit gratuitous.
I didn't like that scene either. I didn't think it was necessary, and I agree. I just mentioned The White Lotus. There's a scene in there from a recent episode which felt of a similar line, like they're trying to be crazy and outrageous and provocative. But sometimes a good story doesn't need that. Sometimes and that's one of the things I liked about that Friend movie, by the way, with the dog, is that it's a very quiet, subtle, measured, mannered movie where you can read a lot from it, but it's not doing a lot of crazy, outrageous things.
Christian Toto is the host of the Hollywood in Toto podcast, HollywoodInToto, TOTO.com, HollywoodInToto.com. Christian, thank you as always.
My pleasure.
Love your work, man.
And Christian Toto joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
At AlmostFreeTeeth.com, they're dedicated to making smiles